Hello, hello. So today we are reading out of Dr. Myles Munroe, Rediscovering the Kingdom. That is Dr. Myles Munroe, Rediscovering the Kingdom. This reading is actually the introduction. I am going to try to make sure that I read this book throughout. So follow me for each recording as we go along. Let's go ahead and dive in. I do not want to waste any time. Let's go. Introduction. It says, an idea is more powerful than an army. There's nothing more powerful than an idea. Ideas created and now control the world we live in. When an idea is conceived, it is called a thought. When a thought is conceived, it is called a concept. Concepts are the material that dreams are made of, and they serve as the substance for living and interpreting life. Everything humans have made or invented was first preceded by an idea. As a matter of fact, inventions are often called one's brainchild. In essence, the mind can be impregnated by ideas that develop into concepts that become visions that produce reality. Concepts are to life what the blood is to the body. Perhaps this is what the great King Solomon meant when he wrote over 3,000 years ago. As a man thinks, so is he. You are and become your concepts. Psychologists describe our value and estimation of our lives by the nature of our self-concept. Concepts rise in value as we consider our perception and interpretation of life. Human communication is solely dependent on concepts. We can only understand life to the degree that our concepts are correct. As a matter of fact, the purpose and goal of communication is to transfer your ideas and concepts from your mind to another mind. Therefore, communication is only successful when the sender's concepts are received accurately and properly understood by the receiver and vice versa. If your ideas are wrong, then your concepts are wrong. And consequently, your understanding will be inaccurate and incomplete. You can only understand properly if your concepts are in alignment with your ideas, and your ideas must be based upon God's dynamic truth. The original concept is always in the mind of the sender. In this state of the thinking process, it is called a precept. Simply put, a precept is an original idea. Therefore, in order to understand the original concept, you must have a clear grasp of the precepts of the sender of a message. The heart of understanding is precepts and concepts. Error is a product and a result of what is called misconception. In reality, the receiver misunderstood the concept of the sender. This book will fail in its purpose and intent if I do not successfully convey and transfer my precepts, concepts, ideas, and thoughts to you, the reader. So let's proceed in exploring the critical concepts that lead to the answer to man's search for meaning. The long search for the ideal. In every generation since the beginning of time, the dream of a utopian society has motivated and sustained the passion of mankind, producing highly developed cultures and social systems as they moved forward in this pursuit. The driving force and desire for the perfect world finds its way into every civilization and has been the source of inspiration that has led to the invention of philosophical ideas, social infrastructures, and even religions, all having some kind of impact on our contemporary communities. This force is centralized in man's search for the ideal. Passion for the ideal, this is IDEAL, ideal with an L. Passion for the ideal produced in many ancient cultures the dream of a messianic vision. This is the belief that somewhere in some distant future, from some unknown place, a person would come who would provide the answers to all problems. He would establish the ideal world free from pain, hatred, fear, poverty, and other social ills. A world of peace, love, joy, and harmony among all mankind. This search and desire for an idyllic world is the source of the development of the concept called ideology. Ideology is the most powerful energy that has impacted the lives of people over thousands of years and continues its effort and continues its effects to this very day. An ideology is the formulation of ideas and thoughts that have been pondered, developed, redefined, defined, and formalized. These ideas are also defined as a philosophy or a way of thinking. Some of these formalized ideas have produced schools of thought, which become the foundations of theoretical and ideological premises for the creation of systems of governing communities, societies, cities, nations, and the world. On the negative side, some of these ideologies have been the source of injustice, destruction, oppression, mass poverty, depression, and social terror. These ideologies have carried a variety of labels, and over thousands of years, they have emerged, submerged, and then reemerged in succeeding generations. Some of these labels are quite familiar, even in our generation: imperialism, socialism, communism, dictatorship, humanism, democracy, monarchy, and communal living, deismus. Many of these have been tried, revised, integrated, revived, and have been the source of many social experiments. Yet, no matter how much man has tried to recreate his world, the fulfillment of his hope and desire for utopia still eludes him. Our most recent attempts have led to the advent of the ideology of individual freedom and the admirable concept of self-determination and a justice society. And a just society, which we have termed in our modern civilization as the democratic ideal. Despite the fact that this is the most civil form of national governance and social relations within a society, even this has not manifested the utopia its founders dreamed of. The motivation and inspiration for the pursuit of the civil society and the democratic idea is the concept of freedom. The pursuit of personal freedom is the strongest motivator in Western social consciousness. This desire to be free to pursue one's personal dreams and to maximize one's potential is the foundation of the democratic ideal and is embraced as the ultimate standard of a free society. However, the societies and communities that have tried this noble freedom experiment are still plagued with the inconsistencies of inequality, racism, prejudice, injustice, corruption, jealousy, suspicion, competition, abuse, neglect, and a clear disparity between the haves and the have-nots. In the end, mankind has become imprisoned by his pursuit of freedom, the source of the desire. I've had the privilege of traveling to 70 nations and have worked with every race, culture, cultural, culture, socioeconomic class, and religious and political group. And yet, I'm still amazed that in each of these societies, the search is the same. In fact, it is my conclusion that we are all the same and searching for the same thing. What makes us different is the routes and the systems we implement and develop to find what we are searching for. Simply put, all people are the same and looking for the same answers to the same questions. A few years ago, I received a gift from some friends in a faraway country with whom I had the opportunity to work with. Their culture and social background were different from my own. They had heard me speak on the subject of man's search for meaning and purpose in life. The gift they gave me was a beautiful hardbound book with a title that still sticks in my mind 20 years later. The book was called The Long Stretch. I was intrigued with this simple title, but even more than that, I was pleasantly surprised by the content of the book. It has become one of my favorite books in my personal library. The book chronicled the history of the invention, development, refinement, and practices of all religions in the world. The photos captured my imagination. The text expanded my appreciation of the complex nature of religions, and the research provided insight into the commonality of the human family. At the heart of the book was the concept that all religions are a result of man's search for a supreme being identified as God, divinity, or whatever other word one chooses to fill in the blank. Religion is man's attempt to respond to his desire to find some type of meaningful and possibly intimate relationship with a supreme being as he seeks to find some reasonable meaning to life. This human search for ultimate reality is natural and common to all human cultures. Even the self-acclaimed atheist inherently believes that. At the very least, there is someone or something out there not to believe in. Even in the most primitive societies, we find this expression of desire to seek, find, and understand a supreme being as evidence in the creation, development, and practice of some form of religion. However, the question confronts us. From where did this natural desire and need to seek for a higher power originate? This internal soul searching irritation that there must be a reason and a design for the universe and creation must have a source. The long search for reality obviously implies that something is lost. It is impossible to search for nothing. Therefore, it is my contention that the very nature of a man's soul indicates that something he previously possessed is missing. It also seems that this need to search is not a choice, but a necessity. The search is personal as well as corporate. Perhaps the best way to find what is missing and what we are searching for is to identify what you need or desire. For example, thirst implies the need for water. Hunger implies the need for food, and tiredness implies the need for rest. So we can identify what we lack by what we naturally desire and thus recognize our need. We will discuss this need of mankind in succeeding chapters. However, it is important to at least acknowledge its existence and overpowering control over all mankind, and to also appreciate that this deep need controls and dictates man's behavior, both individually and corporately. Identifying the need. I've spent over 40 years studying and researching this phenomenon, first in a personal pursuit, and then also in a lifelong commitment to help others find some answers to their dilemma. I have come to the conclusion that the common pursuit of all humans is the pursuit of power, the desire to possess the ability to control one's circumstances and destiny. I know this may shock you and perhaps cause you to go into denial. Most of us would not want to admit that we desire something as frightening as power. But the reality is that this is the basic desire in every human heart. When I use the term power, I'm not referring to the tyrannical, oppressive, dictatorial, dictatorial control of people, but rather the ability to control one's own circumstances and environment. It is the lack of control over our daily lives, situations, and circumstances that make us feel so helpless and live as victims of life. For most of us, life is simply a daily struggle as we try to stay afloat in a sea of uncertainty and pressures of all sorts. At the same time, we wrestle with a sense of dignified slavery to the institutions of our societies. Our desire and passion to gain this power to control our circumstances and environments is the motivation for our behavior. We strive to gain positions of influence in order to accumulate financial wealth. We seek the power that money promises us, political and spiritual power, the accumulation of status symbols, superior knowledge, and many other forms of controlling dispositions. I believe this pursuit for power is simply the pursuit of dominion over life. This human preoccupation and desire for power and dominion is also the fuel for man's obsession and progressive development in all disciplines, including political science, social science, biological science, technical science, spiritual research, economic research, and all other aspects of the human experience. The result of this power search is found in the long march towards modernization. Over the past 6,000 years, mankind has tried and continues to try to control and tame the environment through the invention of primitive and modern instruments. For example, in science, he tries to stop the aging process, improve the quality and length of life, and produce every type of pill to solve a myriad of problems. Ultimately, his greatest challenge is to prevent the reality of death. Yet, no matter how far man thinks he has progressed, the ability to achieve dominion and power over life and death on earth still eludes him. In fact, in light of all the uncontrollable social ills, health epidemics, military conflicts, political unrest, economic uncertainties, religious clashes, and the destruction of the environment, it seems as if man's advancement is an evolution backward in time. This human failure to achieve control and mastery over his environment and circumstances has left him with a deep desire for a brand new world. The human spirit longs for a world he can control where circumstances are at the mercy of his will. This is the greatest human desire, This is also the source and motivation of religious and spiritual development and practice. In every religion, we discover the component that promises power to control circumstances and even death itself. This explains why the deep, dark, secret practice of witchcraft and spiritism are so attractive to millions. They promise power over people and circumstances. The human spirit is possessed by the desire to dominate, rule, and control the personal, private world and the environment. Man is in search of the ultimate governing power of dominion. The desire for power is inherent in the human spirit. To understand this desire for power, it is necessary to understand the original purpose and design of mankind and the assignment for which he was created. Ooh, so that was the introduction. All right, that's the end of this introduction. Hit the next, scroll on to the next for chapter 1, which is discovering the origin and purpose of man. Again, this is Myles Munroe, Rediscovering the Kingdom, Ancient Hope for Our 21st Century World. The late, great Dr. Myles Munroe. All right, see you guys in the next recording. Thanks for joining me.